Okay, so this video is going to be material roughly sections 2.5, 2.6 of the text. What I'm going to do is do a few more examples of truth tables for compound statements, and then we will do categorizing statements as tautologies, contradictions, and contingencies. So the first thing I want to point out is that we've seen two examples of doing truth tables where I walked through cell by cell in the table, going down one column and then the next column, using the truth function to sort of fill that out every time. Just to remind you of that, that was like what I did up here, where we would look at the inputs. In this case, first conjunct or disjunct is false, second is true. Find the corresponding row in the truth function, and it says that the output's true, and put a T here. That's a great way to do truth tables. It works. Obviously, you don't want to have to write this down. You should, after you do 4, 5, 6 truth tables, you will just have these memorized, and you'll just be able to go down and do them. You won't need to write anything down here. That works. It's fine. There's a slightly different approach. It's a little bit of a shortcut, but it can make the truth tables quicker, which is this. Notice that, well, obviously negations are easy. It's just the opposite. If the negated statement is true, the negation is false, and vice versa. So just think of it as the opposite truth value. The two-place functions, conjunction, disjunction, and conditional, are all such that there's one particular pattern that's unlike the three other patterns. Okay, so notice that for conjunction, there's only one pattern that makes it true. All other patterns are false. It's only true when both inputs are true. Every other input, first true, second false, first false, second true, both false, is false. Okay? So if you're doing a truth column for a conjunction, one thing you could do is you just find the rows that have that pattern. You just go down and you say, okay, which rows have both conjuncts true? And you put a T on those rows for the conjunction. And then you just make all of the others false. And as long as you actually found all and only the right rows where both conjuncts are true, that'll be fine. Disjunctions are only false with one specific pattern. When both disjuncts are false, everything else is true. So if you're doing a truth column for a disjunction, you can just go down, you just find all rows where both disjuncts are false, you put an F there, and everything else is true. For a conditional, the sort of outlier combination, the combination that's unlike the other three, is when the antecedent is true and the consequent is false. That's the only combination that makes a conditional false, is that combination. Which means if you're doing a truth column for a conditional, you can just go down the truth columns of the antecedent and consequent and look for the combination of true antecedent, false consequent, and you put an F in the truth column for the conditional on those rows, and everything else will be true. Okay? So now you have two ways when you're trying to do a truth table and fill out a truth column, two ways to go about it. There's the sort of, full way where you go down every one, you look at the pattern, you fill it out. There's the kind of shortcut way where you do it in the way I just described. Either way works fine. Now, I just want to do some examples of some truth tables. Here's one. If not R, then R. Do it exactly like we've done everything else. How many rows are we going to need? Well, we always need 2 to the n rows. Here n is 1. There's only one atomic statement. So 2 to the first power is just 2. So we're only going to need 2 rows. How many columns are we going to need? Well, we're going to need 1 for every component. So we're going to need a row for R, for not R, and then for if not R, then R. So we're going to need 3 columns. So the truth table is going to look like this. 2 rows, 3 columns. First thing we do is we list all of the atomic statements in alphabetical order. There we go, R. Then we fill out all the possible combinations of truth values. So we go to the first one, top half T's, bottom half F's. Well, there's only 2, so the top half T's is just T, bottom half F's is just F, and then we're done. Now we're going to build up from the atomic statement to the bigger compound statements, not R, and then the conditional, if not R, then R. Not R is super easy, it's just the opposite of R, so true becomes false, false becomes true. Now, we've got a conditional here. I'm going to do the shortcut way. We have a conditional, so I'm just going to look for the combination that makes it false, which is true antecedent, false consequent. Well, here's the antecedent, not R, consequent is R. So I'm going to look for true here. So here's the antecedent, not R, where this is true, but R is false. And that's right here. I get this combination in row 2, and only row 2. So I'm just going to write an F here and put a T everywhere else. Now you could go through one row at a time. You could, say, okay, if the antecedent is false, consequent is true, what does it output? Well, it outputs true. If you put the table down there, you would see that false antecedent, true consequent outputs true. If the antecedent is true, consequent is false, what does it output? It outputs false. So you could do it the other way as well. Either way works. Let's do this one. This is, if you look at it, there's 3 atomic statements, G, E, and K. So we're going to need 2 to the 3rd power is 8 rows. How many columns are we going to need? Let's count them out. We're going to need G, E, K, that's 3. We're going to need a column for not K and not E, that's 5. G isn't negated anywhere, so we don't need that. So we've got up to 5. G or E, 6. If G or E, then not K, 7. Not K and not E, that's 8. Not K and not E, that's 9. And then the entire conditional, 10. So we're going to need 10 columns. And I'm going to go ahead and write them out this way. By the way, I have to squeeze these up in order to make them fit on this slide. So I have to break these statements this way. You shouldn't do that on any quizzes or any exams, okay? On quizzes and exams, just make them, one statement straight out. That shouldn't be an issue for you, but I'm only doing this because I have to. Okay. Now, let's just go ahead and fill it out. Notice, these are in alphabetical order. Even though E doesn't show up first here, G is the first one. Like if we just looked from left to right, it would be G, E, and then K in terms of the order they kind of show up in the linear string. You put them in alphabetical order here. So E, G, K. Fill out the columns. Go to the first one, top half T's, bottom half F's. I'm alternating by 4s there. The top half is 4, so I'm going to alternate by 2s. True, true, false, false, and now alternate by 1s. Okay? Now, not E, that's just the opposite of E. So this was 4 trues, 4 falses. This is going to be 4 falses and 4 trues. And not K is just going to be the opposite of K. So instead of true, false, it's just going to be false, true, false, true. Okay, those are easy. This column is also going to be pretty easy. It's a disjunction, G or E. So where are the 2 disjuncts? G, E, first disjunct, second disjunct. I'm going to do the shortcut method. You could go through every one, right? You got, what does it output when the first disjunct is true and the second disjunct is true? Well, you should know it outputs true. So you put a T there and you can just go down that way. I'm going to do the shortcut. I know that a disjunction is false only when both disjuncts are false. So the 2 disjuncts are here in the first 2 columns. Where are they both false? Only here, down at the bottom, rows 7 and 8, they're both false. So these are the columns I'm looking at. They're both false there and there. And that's it. If I look at any other row, it's not false, false. So I'm going to put falses here in 7 and 8, and then everything else is true. Okay, next up, we have a conditional. If G or E, then not K. I'm going to do the shortcut method. Here's the antecedent, G or E. Consequent is not K. So antecedent, consequent. I'm going to make them two different colors. Blue and whatever this is, violet or periwinkle, or I don't know what that is. Now remember, there's only one combination that makes a conditional false, and that's true antecedent, false consequent. So here's the antecedent, here's the consequent. So I'm looking for true here, false here. Well, row 1, true antecedent, false consequent. Where else? Row 3, true antecedent, false consequent. Where else? Row 5, true, false. And that's it. So it's only 1, 3, and 5. So I'm going to put false there, and it's going to be true everywhere else. Conjunction, not K and not E. Two conjuncts are here. I'm going to do the same thing. So these are the two conjuncts. A conjunction is only true when both conjuncts are true. So I'm just going to go down and try to find where both conjuncts are true, and here, row 6 and row 8, and that's it. So I'm going to put a T here on 6 and 8, and it's going to be false everywhere else. Next up, we have the negation of that. So this is just not K and not E. So this is easy. This was false except on 6 and 8, so this will be true except on 6 and 8. Okay, so you can look, I just made every row is just the opposite. Now finally, we have a conditional. The antecedent is this, G or E, then not K. So the antecedent is here, and the consequent is here. So antecedent is blue, consequent is kind of purple, or whatever that is, violet. And I'm going to look for the combination that makes it false. True antecedent, false consequent. So true here, false there. Where do I have that combination? 6 and 8. So it's going to be false on 6 and 8, and it's going to be true everywhere else. And that is the truth table for that. Okay, the next topic, now that I've given you a second way to sort of do truth tables, is to, well, do I want to get into the second topic? Now, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here. And the next one will be categorizing statements. So doing a truth table for a statement and determining of it whether it is a contingency, contradiction, or tautology. That'll be next.